I think we're ready to go, so we may as well start, even though we're a couple of minutes early, if that's it. Happy to wait. No, we'll get underway. And we are going to resume again now back into outcome 2. So thank you everybody for your willingness to accommodate the changes earlier. And we're going to go to Senator Seward to start with some questions.
Okay, I wanted to go to the cashless debit card. For a start, can we clarify, Minister, there was in the media speculation around a national rollout, and when I was commenting on that chamber, I heard some comments from you. So could you please clarify just what the government's position is about a potential national rollout of the cashless debit card?
Yeah, the comments that, if you read the quotes directly from me, I said that I was open to a conversation with the nation about further use of the cashless debit card as a welfare measure, and I said nothing more than that.
And what does that mean?
Well, I think we should start having conversation. We should start talking to Australians, both those that are on the card and those that pay the taxes that fund welfare. I think we should have a conversation about the broader application of different ways and different supports that we can give people on welfare, but I've not made any comment in relation to any decisions to roll it out.
Why would you put that out there if you weren't thinking about it? We haven't seen the evaluation yet.
So you don't think the Australian public should have a chance to have a say about this?
But why would you? But what are the benefits? Outline the benefits of having a card. Why start the conversation if you're not intending to do it?
Because I think decisions need to be informed by the broadest range of stakeholders.
So that could be interpreted as you think it's a good idea.
No, I think you're interpreting that's what I'm thinking, but you can't.
Why would you waste time having a conversation on something that you're not thinking about doing and something that, in fact, the evidence isn't there to support?
I respect the Australian public and I respect stakeholders in every area that I work in, and I'd like to have a conversation with them.
What we're having a conversation in the community about now is raising New Start. That's what people are having a conversation about, but the government doesn't want to engage in that.
Well, it is my policy area, and I made a comment which was picked up in the paper on the back of a visit to the Northern Territory that I had in January, and I was asked some questions about my trip, and as part of that they asked me about a national rollout.
Who did?
And the media. And my response was, I'm more than open to a conversation with the Australian public. I think you may be overreaching in your interpretation of what I might or might not have meant by that. I meant nothing more than what I just said.
Because I'm sure you've had emails too, because that immediately sent off to a whole lot of people, women, young people, people on disability support pension, some people literally saying, well, I won't actually repeat it, but saying some pretty awful things about what they might do if they were put on, they're on disability support pension, if they were put on a cashless debit card.
Well, I haven't made any comments about any particular cohorts being put on it or not.
No, I know. But they actually look at what's going on in the trial sites. They know that a number of the trial sites have anybody on a working age payment on disability support pension, and then disability support pension, that are on the cashless debit card. So it actually sent off quite a lot of shockwaves through the community that would be potentially affected by if they were put on a cashless debit card.
Well, I would say that much of the misinformed commentary that has been going on, particularly on social media, has probably been more damaging to people's, well-being than my comment in the paper. I mean, I have seen some of the most horrendous lies on social media, and yourself, Senator Seward, I know you're not an advocate of income quarantining. I mean, you're quite clear about that.
Because I've read the evidence and paid a lot of attention to it for the last 12 and a half years.
Well,
nearly 13.
Yeah, well, obviously you and I will have to agree to disagree.
No, I actually go by the evidence.
Yeah, no, well, I do too. and I continue to collect the evidence and analyse the evidence. And I note that, you know, Senator O'Sullivan has just come into the room, and he's had a very strong and long involvement in this particular area. But what I would say is that there are many commentaries going on in this space that have been, I think, particularly unhelpful and possibly hurtful to many people. But I don't believe my comments around having a conversation should be interpreted as anything more than that.
I think it's fair enough for people, given the government's history on the cashless debit card, given the 4 trials that keep getting extended and extended, given the government's wish to roll out the cashless debit card into Northern Territory, that people are actually justified in jumping to being deeply concerned as soon as you mention a conversation about a national rollout.
Well, I disagree, but you're entitled to your opinion. And the other thing that I think that probably is worth putting on the record is that there is a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation in relation to the Northern Territory. The Northern Territory is currently on income management.
I know.
No, let me finish, Senator. Is currently on income management. What we are seeking to do is to offer to people in the Northern Territory a much more advanced piece of technology in relation to supporting income management. The narrative that has been spread in the Northern Territory is that this is somehow people who aren't currently on income management being a further expansion of the cashless debit card for them to go onto income management. They're not. That is not the case. You know that's not the case.
I've not said that.
No, I'm not saying you did, but what I'm saying is the misinformation that is occurring.
There's already 23,000 on the card already.
Yeah. So what we're saying, what we're proposing is to say to people who currently are on the basics card, and you and I both know that it's very dated technology. It's in comparison to the cashless debit card, offering the opportunity to transfer them over onto a modern piece of technology. But that's not the messaging that's being put out by many into the Northern Territory, which is, once again, is creating a level of uncertainty and misunderstanding amongst the people that are on the card.
Oh,
excuse me.
What people see is income management being entrenched in the Northern Territory. That's what people see, because that's what it does when you move over to, and that's what people are.
Well, currently people
also concerned about
the Northern Territory are, well, the people that we're talking about are on income management.
I know, and they're deeply concerned about that.
But that's my point, Senator Seward. That's my
They're
exact
deeply
point.
concerned about income management.
Yes.
And being on income management.
Yeah, but what is being prosecuted at the moment is somehow that that the suggestion to change from the basics card to the CDC is that we're actually making people who currently aren't on income management go into income management. So it is creating a level of fear and misunderstanding. That was certainly the experience I had when I was speaking to people in the Northern Territory. And when I spoke to them and explained to them about the advantages and the functionality of the CDC technology and comparative basics card, many of them were saying, where can I get one from? They were really quite interested in the new technology.
Well, if people want to go on voluntary income management, that's their choice.
This is not the debate we're having, Senator
choice.
Seward.
Sorry?
You're trying to have the debate the very reason that I'm trying to point out to you that it is not the debate of the legislation, and you're now trying to have that debate with me.
No, I'm not. You said, people said, well, where do I get one? I'm saying if people wanted volunteer onto income management, that's a very different proposition to compulsory income management.
They were volunteering to transfer from the basics card to the CDC, yes.
Well, there's a whole lot of people, as you know, that I'm sure if you talk to people that don't want to transfer and they don't want to be on income management.
Well, the people that don't want to transfer are the ones that I believe have been given misleading information, because everybody that I spoke to and explained the situation to were actually very open to the change in technology. They
still don't want to be on income management necessarily. Can I ask, please, thank you for that clarification. Can I ask, when is the evaluation expected from the University of Adelaide study expected?
Sorry, Liz, you might know better.
Senator, we're just asking the head of our evaluation area to come to the table.
Troy Sloan, Group Manager, Analysis, Evaluation and Data. We're expecting that the first half of this year, Senator.
First half?
Yes, Senator.
It's February now.
Correct, Senator.
When was it? Wasn't it? Sorry?
March.
It's March, I beg your pardon. I probably still wish it was February, sorry, I beg your pardon. We're into March. It was due at the end of last year, wasn't it?
Sorry, due, Senator,
Was
what do you
it
mean?
due at the end of last year, the study, the evaluation?
Well, it was originally planned to be delivered at the end of last year, yes, Senator.
Yeah, okay, thank you. What's the delay?
Basically, what happened is when Adelaide University got into the field, there was feedback from people in the field that we needed to do more qualitative interviews with CDC providers. So we've increased the number of interviews we're having with CDC providers. There was also feedback...
CDC providers?
CDC participants, sorry, Senator.
Right.
So we've increased the number of interviews that are being done by CDC participants.
Are you able to outline what the nature of those interviews were?
Sorry.
What type of interviews were they?
Well, there's two...
Senator, we could take on notice to provide you with the information about the additional fieldwork that the evaluators suggested to us would be useful to do, if that's helpful.
If you could, yes, as long as we can get it in a fairly timely manner.
Yep.
The nature, the type of, I'm very interested in the type of qualitative interviews that have been done.
Yes.
The nature of those and the questions that were asked and how they were interviewed. Is that?
Yes, I don't know if Mr Sloan wants to add something now. But
And I'd just say, not on qualitative, and we are also, as Ms Saffron-Webb said, our independent expert evaluators also suggested additional support to fill out the quantitative survey. So the Adelaide University hired local people from local organisations to help fill those quantitative surveys in, as well as providing a senior researcher and assistant researchers in each site to oversee those quantitative surveys, and as well as training their local staff to help engage in doing those quantitative surveys.
Okay, thank you. In terms of then, you touched on the people that were helping. Where did you say they came from? Sorry, from
The local organisations, Senator.
what type of
So like
organisations?
providers and so forth. And service providers is my understanding.
Service providers.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you take on?
We'll take that on notice.
Can you take that on notice? Which
Yes.
organisations provided that support?
Yes.
To complete the quantitative work,
Yes, we can do that.
and also the people that were then in each of the trial centres. I presume it was in each of them, in each of the trials, where you said you hired a senior
Yes,
research
correct.
person in each of the trials.
In the three that being under the impact evaluation, correct, Senator, yes.
Okay, thank you. If you could do that, that'd
Yes.
be appreciated. Can I, I'm conscious of time, so I'm sorry I'm jumping a bit. Can I go to the exit process, please, and ask how many people have now exited?
yes, so 28 people have been approved for exit.
How many people have, thank you, how many people have applied?
Out of 859.
859. When did the 28, when were they exited?
So progressively over the last 2 weeks, they've been exited.
Thank you. Have they actually, could you take on notice which trial sites they've been exited from?
Yes.
How, unless you can tell me that fairly quickly.
I can certainly tell you that there's some in Kalgoorlie and some in Bundaberg, Hervey Bay, but I will get the exact numbers for you. Hang on.
And could you take, so none from Kununurra? None from Kununurra?
So, Senator, I'm just looking, my colleagues just pointed out to me, so I do have some figures here.
Yep.
But because of the small numbers, I can tell you that there's 14 in the goldfields, so the Kalgoorlie goldfields, of that 28, but the rest of the trial sites, it looks like I don't have enough. So it's less than 5 essentially, so we don't report the individual figures.
Okay,
so,
but there is some in Bundaberg and Kununurra?
yes, there are. There's definitely participants who have been assessed in Bundaberg. I'm not sure about Kununurra.
What about Sojourner?
Yes. So I'm being told all.
All right. Could you take on notice the which payments they were on?
Yes.
Or can you do that? It's going to be, you don't have a table you could table?
No, not with the payments.
Sorry?
Not with the payments,
Not with the
Senator,
payments. If you could take that on notice. And when those people, how long have they been waiting? Were they, I'm very aware there was a whole group that
Yes. So
were ringing even before the process started, if they were ringing you like they were ringing me.
Yes.
So some of them will have been their applications in for quite a long time.
Yeah. So Senator, as you're aware, we had legislation and then we had legislation amended. You will remember all this.
Yes, I do very clearly remember.
Yes. And so then the application form was available to people from the 12th of September. So some of these people would have got their application in pretty soon after that.
Yeah.
Some of them maybe a little bit later. So
Yeah, okay.
I don't have the exact date.
Okay, if you could take that on notice, that'd be appreciated. Because I very clearly take your point that when the application form became available, but for them, they started trying the beginning of July.
I understand.
So, can I ask, in terms of the wellbeing process, how many people have now been exempt through the wellbeing process? Or is that?
Selena Patrick, Branch Manager, Welfare Quarantining Branch. So the number of people exempt, given a wellbeing exemption, is the total of 169.
169. Could you take on notice from which trial sites they're from, or have you got that?
I can
on-
provide that for you now.
Okay, thank you.
So from Sojourner, there's 33. From the East Kimberley region, 33. From the Goldfields, 95. And from Bundaberg, Hervey Bay, 8.
From Hervey Bay. Are you able to provide the breakdown of the 28? I realise what you've said about the low numbers, but the 28 and the 169 against whether they're First Nations or not First Nation or non-First Nations?
I reckon the low number 28 is going to make that a bit tricky, but we could have a look at it and then we could have a look shortly if there's more, and when it gets to a point where we can disclose numbers, because we might be seeing a lot of less than 5s for you, Senator.
Yeah, okay, take that point. The point's been very strongly made to me is that the process, which we've already discussed, is very complex, and that it's proving a barrier to First Nations peoples. So I would like to
we'll
know
take
if that's
that
the case.
on board and have a look and work through those issues to determine whether we need to do something.
Thank you. And given that you've now done 28 over the last 2 weeks, does that now mean that you will have the others dealt with in a expedient
Yes,
manner?
Senator. So we're progressively working through them essentially. So as you know, there's a number of criteria that people need to demonstrate. It has been quite complex to pull together the evidence relating to those criteria. So as we have the evidence for an application, it is then assessed, provided to me as the delegate for decision. So I'd anticipate a steady flow of, a certain number per week from now on would be passing through.
Okay, thank you. And each of these 28 already exempted have been through all of that? You've been through all of those criteria?
Yes, we have.
Okay, thank you. In terms of, are they actually now, have they been notified, and are they actually now off the card?
So they've been notified that they are no longer participants in the trial. I'll just ask Ms Patrick maybe to talk technically about when
How
that
they
takes
actually
effect.
physically get off the thing?
Yep.
So those people have been contacted by the department via a phone call to talk about the remaining funds in their cashless debit card accounts, as well as then receiving some letters from the Department of Social Services, and also they received one from Services Australia.
So have they actually now been able to transfer that money into their normal savings account?
Yes, so people are given the option of transferring the funds out. For some people, they have chosen to leave some funds in there just while they change their direct debit arrangements over.
Yeah, okay. And is that being expedited in terms of them being able to change those direct debit
Yes.
from
Payments? Yeah.
There's CenterPay, which is, they'll be using CenterPay and some will be doing direct debits.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm getting the look. I better.
While we're just on cashless debit cards, Senator O'Sullivan had some questions as well.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to ask about the transition.
Okay, I'll come to you after that.
Ask about the transition in the Northern Territory and the legislation that relates to that. Can you just tell me about the engagement? How many organisations has the department engaged with in relation to the transition from income management to the cashless debit card?
The department has met with 120 stakeholder organisations.
Can you tell me the difference between the basics card and the cashless debit card?
Yes, so as you may be aware, the cashless debit card is a card that's more freely accepted in a number of merchants. So the cashless debit card is accepted in around 900,000 merchants. The basics card is accepted in around 16,000 Australia-wide. There are some differences in the restricted items, and for the cashless debit card, it is able to be used online as opposed to the basics card, which is not.
Some of the feedback we hear is that the basics card for the user can be quite limited. You hear anecdotal reports, people having to drive past a petrol station to go further on, and particularly in the Northern Territory, sometimes those distances can be quite far to drive past a petrol station that only accepts a normal Visa or MasterCard or EFTPOS, because the petrol station further down the road is the only one that has the basics card terminal. The cashless debit card would actually deal with that problem, wouldn't it?
Yes,
for
it
those
does.
people?
Yes,
Okay.
so the cashless debit card works by having all merchants switched off, except for those merchants which primarily sell restricted items.
And with the transition, what sort of supports will be there for individuals that will make that transition from the basics card to the cashless debit card? And if there is a package, what's that package worth?
So our government's committed $17.5 million to support the transition. There'll also be staff from Services Australia attending remote communities to assist people with the transition. So the 17.5 is on top of any public service support,
Okay,
and it's
of what's
available.
already there.
Yes,
Yep.
correct, and it's will be available to support community needs as the communities identify those needs as they go
Okay.
through the transition. So it hasn't been allocated
So it's
to.
got a bottom-up approach in terms
Correct.
of...
We're consulting with communities about what's their priorities, what issues might be particularly relevant for them as they go through this transition process, whether it's extra financial management support, it might be around their IT connectivity, there might be other issues that as a community they would find helpful. So we're at this information gathering stage, but the funds have been committed.
Okay. So with regards to the consultation, I want to give you an example of some consultation that's been done that I think we'd all agree has been quite effective, and I think would be widely supported as being effective. That was the consultation done by the Coalition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peak organisations that led engagements with Indigenous Australians, communities and organisations to consult around the Closing the Gap. Nearly 2,300 people attended nearly 70 face-to-face sessions, as well as online survey, getting nearly 1,700 responses. So this seemed like a pretty good example of very thorough engagement, and the feedback from that has been very widely and well received. So in relation to the Northern Territory and Cape York, with regards to this transition, how many engagement sessions have been held?
The department has visited 60 communities and held over 77 information sessions.
So that's 60, obviously just within the Northern Territory.
Yes, and that's speaking to 3,175 participants.
3,175 compared to what I said before was 2,300. How many people attended? That was
3,175.
Okay. Because there's people around that are saying that there hasn't been sufficient enough engagement with this, but that seems to me to be quite extensive level engagement. Does the department, when you're having those discussions with people in the community, what sort of support is there for participants? Are there, for example, interpreters involved?
Yes, so the department works with local community organisations such as a CDP provider or a local council, and takes advice from the organisation on engaging interpreters and also how best to promote the information session to community members.
Okay.
And that can be via radio ads or posters within communities. We also have fact sheets which have been interpreted into 18 languages, and we are currently in the process of having some recordings of key messages into Indigenous languages.
I came in as I think the Minister was explaining that there is some misinformation in the communities, but once people get to understand the benefits of the cashless debit card, they can see the benefits and just wanting to know more and find out how they can get on board with it. Would you say, what's the key reason for that? Is it that whole merchant issue? Is that what really grabs people's minds and attentions when they hear about the card and the differences? Is there a particular feature of it that appeals?
I think the wider access to merchants is appealing. I think also the ability to manage a lot of your own business online is appealing to a lot of people. So I think there's a couple of things. And I just note that, over the period that the basics cards have been operating, there's been several tranches where we've had to replace people's basics card with a new basics card. So it's not unfamiliar to a lot of people to transition to a card. So the transition itself is not so new to them, and they're really interested in the new features and the greater flexibility.
Excellent. There's a report that came out not long ago called the Hidden Costs Report. Are you familiar with this report?
Yes, we are.
Can you tell me how many people are on income management and the cashless debit card across all the sites?
I just might ask Mr. Peoples to answer that question.
Sorry, Ben Peoples, Welfare Quarantining Branch. So as at 31 January 2020, there was 25,231 participants on income management across all sites, 12,150 participants on the cashless debit card, so all up 37,381.
Does the department know how many interviews were conducted with participants as part of the hidden costs report released in February of participants?
Yes, the report states that there were 68 survey respondents who said that they had experience being on the cashless debit card. And the report also states that they conducted qualitative interviews in 2 of the 4 cashless debit card sites, that being Bundaberg and Hervey Bay and Ceduna. and out of that, 57 interviewees were cashless debit card participants, with 32 being from the Bundaberg and Hervey Bay region and 25 from the Ceduna region.
Now, I'm not good with maths in my head very well, but that seems to me to be about 2%, 0.2%, I think.
Yes, I think
Is that
that's
right?
correct. Yes.
So it's a very low figure. So given the main criticisms of the previous ORMA evaluation has been around going to highly qualitative and not representative of the views of participants, that evaluation understood had about a 23-24% sample size. So would the department suggest that 0.2% is a statistically valid sample to draw any conclusions from?
Senator, I would refer you to the report itself. The authors actually state in there further research would be required with larger samples to gauge the representatives of the survey's findings. So the authors acknowledge a larger sample needs to be done to really test their findings.
So to draw any strong conclusions from it would probably be, how would that be a fool's errand to do that?
Again, I'd use the author's own words where they say the results should not be taken to be representative of all those on income management, either across Australia or at any particular site, Senator.
And in that report, did they actually interview anyone from the Northern Territory?
No, Senator.
Not a single person?
No, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you. Done. Senator McCarthy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Minister, are any of your staff on the cashless debit card?
Not that I'm aware of.
Ms Campbell, are you on the cashless debit card?
No, Senator.
Ms Heffron-Webb, are you on the cashless debit card?
No, Senator.
Would you like to be? I can't hear you.
It's a question of opinion, Senator. It's not really.
So, Senator, I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm just asking because you're talking so favourably about it. I thought maybe it's something that all staff might be going to go on as well, that's all.
Senator, I think there's a number of reasons we talk about some of the benefits from the cashless debit card. We could take you through some of those
Oh, no, I heard the benefits. I heard Senator O'Sullivan speak of the benefits so highly. But anyway, I digress. Let me go to a question on, an answer to a question on notice SQ 1900345 indicated that there have been at least 12 cashless debit card outages, which are Indue's fault, between August 2016 and October 2019. Have any penalties been applied to Indue for these outages?
I'll just ask I can confirm that there are service level arrangements that the card provider must meet. I need to take on notice if there were any penalties applied.
You need to take on notice whether any penalties have been applied to Indue?
Yes, I don't have the answer in front of me.
Okay, do you think you'll have them tonight?
Can try.
We'll be here for a while.
Can try.
Senator, it is a commercial contract, so we just need to check what we are able to disclose, but we'll try and get that information for you.
Thank you, Ms Heffron-Webb. Are there provisions under Indue's contract for penalties to be applied when service outages occur?
I'm quite sure that there are, but I do need to confirm that.
Have there been any more outages since this time? Since October 2019?
I'm just finding that information for you. What I can confirm is that the department recently worked with the card provider to develop what's called stand-in processing, so that if there are Indue-only outages from November, we were able to have stand-in processing step in, which allows for transactions to continue to process.
So what happens in that instance?
It's essentially an offline transaction, so if the merchant can't contact Indue, the transaction goes through, and then when the system restores, it can balance that transaction.
So there isn't a stop at all, it just continues through?
It does for indue-only outages.
Okay. In January this year, hundreds of people living in a remote area of the Territory were unable to access cash or quarantined funds because of power outages and other connectivity issues. They had no way to access food and other essentials using their income management basics cards during these times. Administrators at the communities told of people going hungry and having to drive hundreds of kilometres to Alice Springs to get food and other essentials. How will the cashless debit card address these issues?
So, Senator, I understand that was a Telstra outage, and so all EFTPOS cards were not working in the community.
Basics card or any other card?
And no EFTPOS cards were working in the community.
Cash, maybe.
So people on income management in the Northern Territory would generally have 50% of their funds not on the basics card, but it would have been on some other card that they might have, but that was also not working. So I understand that was a situation that arose in the Northern Territory, and a number of people came into Alice Springs. I was advised by the Northern Territory government because of the issues using EFTPOS generally.
And
so if the EFTPOS system isn't working, neither the basics card nor the cashless debit card nor any other EFTPOS card will work.
Yeah, but as I said, people that aren't on the card could potentially have cash.
They could have before the outage, because we make our payments into bank accounts, but as Ms Heffron-Webb said, in the Northern Territory they can access 50% of their payment via cash.
Still not a lot of money.
can I just ask though, I think you said, Ms Heffron-Webb, there was 3,175 participants that you've spoken to in the Northern Territory?
I think Ms Patrick said that, but yes.
Yep, they're the figures, that's correct, the figures that I've just quoted?
I should have said community members rather than participants, sorry.
Community members, yep. And did they raise these concerns around what happens when power outages occur?
I believe at some sessions the issue of connectivity was raised.
And what was the response?
We would talk through the processes that Ms Heffron-Webb just spoke about.
And as I was just responding earlier to Senator O'Sullivan, the funds that have been set aside for to support communities in the transition, one of the issues we are examining is whether there could be greater support for internet connectivity in communities, because the cashless debit card does enable people to use more self-service if that's what they want to do.
So is that something that, Minister, you would look at, is that ability for enhancing internet connection?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you'd commit to?
Well, we're looking at a range of things, and that's why we're out consulting about the issues. And one of the issues that was raised with me was the fact that the greater functionality of the card allows people to be able to manage their accounts online. They can use it for online shopping and the like, and so therefore connectivity was much more important to enable people to use the full functionality of the card. Okay. So we would certainly be looking at ways that we could assist them in that.
Okay, thanks, Minister. The government's spending $3.4 million on a product-level blocking trial in the Goldfields and Bundaberg Hervey Bay regions, which was due to commence in December 2019. Did the product-level blocking trial commence on time?
Yes, it did, Senator.
Is it working so far?
Yes, it is, Senator.
How are the individual products to be blocked identified using the technology?
I might ask Mr Peoples to come back up, just because it is
Can I actually, just while that's happening, Senator McCarthy, I actually had the opportunity to have a technology brief on the product level blocking, and I would make the offer to you or to Senator Seawood, if you'd like to have a look at it, that I could arrange for that to happen.
Thanks, Minister.
Do you want Mr Peoples just to take you through?
Yes, please.
So, sorry, the question is how the product level blocking is working.
How are the individual products
Okay.
to be blocked identified using the technology?
So generally product level blocking involves upgrading a merchant's PIN pad and point of sale system to automatically identify a cashless debit card and block the sale of restricted items. It does this by upgrading the point of sale system so it can scan a customer's basket for restricted items. And if any restricted items are present, the PIN pad will decline the payment request. We're working with PIN pad providers and point of sale system providers on the best way for those restricted items to be identified. But generally, the approach that seems to work best is the classification of products into different departments, which many merchants currently do.
So it relies on the retailer?
There will be some work involved with the retailer.
Well, does it? Well, let's have a look at that then, Mr. Peoples. Does this rely on the retailer correctly categorising products with no checks?
Yes.
And what if a product is miscategorised?
So potentially that, so if you're saying a bottle of alcohol is barcoded as another product,
Banana.
it's, that is possible. We're looking at, that is unlikely. I don't think that's come up as a major risk or a major thing that happens very often. So when you're doing scanning at the supermarket, it doesn't often come up as a completely different product. But I guess if that had been entered incorrectly, that's a possibility. That would be a fault in the system we'd have to look at rectifying. So that hasn't come up as an issue today.
That's if the product is put through the till incorrectly. That's the possibility you're talking about.
So
if it occurs
here in terms of if a product is miscategorised as either being in or out, so a block product or not a block product, if a product is categorised as not being blocked when it should be blocked, it will go through and it won't be noticed. And so it would take a manual observation to realise that a bottle of wine had gone through and it shouldn't have, and then we would assume that the retailer would then correct it once it became to their notice, but it wouldn't be apparent during the transaction. If a product that shouldn't have been blocked has been miscoded and becomes blocked, the capacity for the person who is on the till to override that blocking. So if a bunch of bananas goes through and says it's a block product, it's pretty obvious it's not a block product. The person who's operating the system...
But that's the retailer, right?
Yes, the person who's operating it can do that, yes.
So, Minister, if a retailer decides to do things differently, for example, a packet of nappies can be put up on the scanner, and yet it may be a bottle of alcohol that's being sold.
You're talking about scamming.
Who checks that?
You're talking about scamming.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm perhaps not to you the compliance.
at the moment, because we rely on the retailer doing the checking at the for every product, that we rely on the retailer at the moment.
To be honest.
So the product level blocking will actually make it easier it'll reduce the reliance on the retailer because the barcode will be communicating direct and saying whether or not this is a blocked product. But we do follow up where there are unusual patterns of expenditure, where we suddenly see a surge of expenditure at a particular store. We do follow up and talk to the retailer and work out whether there are particular issues. So that has happened. I'm aware of one occasion, but it's probably happened more than once, and that is something we take very seriously.
The other thing it's worth mentioning that would actually be an illegal action if a retailer purposely did that, and they would have to think very seriously about the consequences of that illegal action. As would anybody, selling alcohol to minors, etc., etc.
We've seen it with the Royal Commission. We know that the scammers are out there. We know that this does occur. It's not,
sadly.
It's unfortunately a terrible reality of our regional parts of the country. So, how does product level blocking work at a cafe or restaurant where bills are written manually and rung up as a single item at the till, combining potentially alcohol and food?
So, do you want to talk?
Okay, yep. So the product level blocking trial is working with merchants that have upgraded point of sale systems and PIN pads that are able to be connected. So we work with merchants to upgrade those both those systems so that scenario wouldn't occur.
So, for example, if I was to go into Tracy Village Sports Club in Darwin and bought a meal, but also had alcohol in that meal and went to pay and purchase it, how would you know that I haven't bought alcohol with the card if the total amount comes around to $60 but you don't know what the amount is?
Senator...
what the product was that I bought to eat.
Senator,
It's not a trick question.
No, I understand. And I don't know that particular club, but in a lot of clubs there's a separate counter where they sell alcohol versus food. And so at the moment, how we make it work is the EFTPOS machine
use it as
selling
a restaurant. Use it as a restaurant or a cafe.
A small cafe with the product level blocking solution won't be the solution for that kind of merchant, a small cafe that has no...
So what would be the solution then?
So we would again have discussions with the merchant about the requirements.
Or that cafe just misses out as a place that you can't purchase anything in. Would that be an alternative as well?
Well, that might be, but at the moment that's not how it operates. So we operate on the basis that they would be included.
It's just a bit more background information, Senator McCarthy. We believe there's around 50,000 mixed merchants in Australia. So that's the kind of thing that you're talking about, ranging from very large operations that already have the kind of point of sale systems built into their systems which enable this technology to just plug straight into, right the way down to a very small cafe that might sell a glass of wine. What we would be seeking to do would be to be working with the banks, working with the EFTPOS, working with the actual the retailers to systematically upgrade their systems, and that may be something that the government needs to assist in providing some assistance to some of these smaller retailers so that they are able to upgrade their point of sale technology so they're able to assist or they're able to use this advanced technology. So even though 50,000 sounds like a lot of businesses, the overwhelming majority of businesses in Australia aren't mixed merchants. They either don't sell blocked products or they do sell blocked products.
All right, well, let's go with that then, 50,000 mixed merchants. Well, what's the penalties for a merchant who does sell a blocked product on CDC?
So we can withdraw CDC access for...
So that's the only penalty, withdrawal?
At this point, I don't believe there's any other penalty.
Do you plan to have anything further than that?
At this stage, we're still looking at the product level blocking opportunities, the merchant framework, etc. So there are no specific plans.
But certainly, Senator McCarthy, if this is something that strongly comes out in the consultation on the card, that greater penalties to prevent scamming and in selling products that the retailers know shouldn't be sold, then it's something that I'm more than happy to look at.
In relation to merchant category codes, can you confirm that businesses themselves select the merchant category code they operate under?
I might have to take that on notice, sorry, Senator.
Okay. And that the department does not check that all businesses in Australia are using the most accurate code? Did you want to take that one as well?
I think what I can say is that the department does have a monitoring strategy that does look at circumvention of the cashless debit card, and if it was the case that businesses were using incorrect merchant category codes as a way to circumvent the program, that would be able to be identified. But we don't do analysis of individual businesses and their merchant category codes as a general rule.
The Visa Merchant Data Standards Manual, which the department indicated was the definitive list of merchant category codes, in answer to a question SQ19 00345, just if you have the document there, describes the eating places and restaurants merchant category code as, I'm not sure if you've got it there, but I've got eating places and restaurants. So merchants classified with this MCC prepare food and drinks for immediate consumption, typically on the merchant's premises. These merchants typically provide table service and may include alcoholic beverages on the menu. This MCC includes food delivery. So we're talking about cafes, restaurants, cafeterias, diners, eating establishments, restaurants, soda fountains. Soda fountains, that's interesting. And then we're looking at bakeries, miscellaneous food stores, convenience stores and special markets, drinking places, alcoholic beverages, bars, taverns, nightclubs, cocktail lounges and discotheques, fast food restaurants. Do you have that document?
No, I don't. Sorry, Senator.
In front of us? No.
Okay, it's a response that you gave to a question. I can give you the attachment number SQ19 000345.
We found it.
Okay. So when I look at the Social Security Administration trial of cashless welfare arrangements, declinable transactions and welfare restricted bank account, determination 2019, I can see that this merchant code 5812 is not listed on the blocked list.
So are you
So I'm looking at, I'm trying to understand your merchant category codes. I figure that you're talking about 50,000 mixed merchants, and I'm trying to understand how your codes and your categories are working or going to work in order for people to understand what it is that they can and can't do.
Well, Senator,
And in terms of purchasing...
I would reiterate, these are very technical questions, and I will reiterate my offer to you and anybody else to facilitate a full technical briefing on the very issues that you're talking about, if you would like.
All right. So, well, maybe what I'd like, what I'm getting at here is, could I use my cashless debit card at the restaurant with the merchant category code 5812 to buy alcohol?
So, Senator, restaurants that sell alcohol are not restricted overall at the moment. So, yes.
So, yes.
Yes.
So doesn't that defeat the purpose of why you're asking people to go on cashless debit card?
Yeah.
So it's different to a...
Been to restaurants, you can drink it if you're being observed.
That's not where the product level blocking. You're talking about merchant codes as opposed to product level blocking.
Well, I'm just trying to understand here just what some of these codes mean and why you can purchase it. If alcohol was an initial concept behind why you're trying to diminish people's ability of choice.
Well, once again, I think it would be really, really useful to give you a technical briefing because the new product level blocking technology that's blocking it at the merchant level will address the issues of mixed merchants, which is what you're referring to.
Well, basically, merchant category code 5812 enables me to buy alcohol with my cashless debit card.
At the moment.
Oh, so you're going to change that?
Well, as I'm saying, the product level blocking technology that we're currently trialling and quite successfully actually enables the determination to be much more granular. So the blocking actually happens at the product level, not at the merchant level. At the moment, we are relying on merchant level blocking until we are able to finalise product level blocking. So That's the difference. They're two different things.
Okay, all right. Well, let me just give an example. If I was from Sejuno but had to go to Adelaide to go to hospital, will there be agreements in place with every cafe and restaurant in Adelaide?
Well, there doesn't need to be agreements if you've got product level blocking.
So the cashless debit card works at every merchant that has EFTPOS.
Except at the moment,
except
you can
for the
still purchase
restricted,
at 5812. as
except
one
for
of
the
codes.
restricted merchants.
So what's the total amount that's been spent on the cashless debit card trial so far and projected to be spent over the forward estimates, including the Northern Territory rollout?
Senator, I don't have actual, Tina Blewett, Group Manager, Community Group, I don't actually have a breakdown of that. I just have the details of the amount of money per each financial year so far that's been spent across for the cashless debit card.
So you do have, sorry, Ms Blewett,
Oh, I thought you were asking for a granular level. I can tell you each year what's been spent on
Sure.
cashless debit card. Is that
Yep.
Yes, sorry, thanks. Thank you. So 15-16, 10.982 million. 16-17, 8.076 million. 17-18, 15.132 million. And 18-19, 16.176 million.
and so what's your total there?
50.367 million.
That's been spent on the
Cashless
cashless
debit
debit card trial so far?
Correct.
Does that include all the costs of injury? What does that include?
That includes evaluation, card provider costs, Department of Social Services departmental costs, Service Australia departmental costs, Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet departmental costs, communications, legal, consultancy, covers everything.
And what was the total of the number of people on the cashless debit card trial?
12,000, somewhere here.
But there's been different numbers in
Different years, yeah.
as it's gone, so it's...
Yes, 12,150 at the moment, Senator.
Sorry,
150 at the moment.
12,150 cashless debit card participants on the trial. So that's 50 million, right? For 12,000 participants
Over a number of years,
Over a number of
Senator?
years, yeah.
over
5 years?
5 years. Okay. So 50 million over 5 years, so that's 10 million a year,
Yes, I've read it, yeah.
The costs are varied around.
roughly.
Yeah,
10 million a year.
10, 8, 15, 16.
10 million a year for 12,000 people over 5 years. And so how much would you want to put in the Northern Territory for 23,000 people to move from Basics card to CDC?
So some of those costs that Ms Blewett's discussed were kind of set-up costs and the like as well?
Correct.
So have we got any figures about the Northern Territory?
No, so in the last budget, the government announced 128.8 million. That was for transitioning income management to CDC, extension of a year for the current sites, and some other components. Have I missed anything? Yeah.
And Minister, you were planning to trying to roll this out in the Northern Territory next month? Is that correct?
No.
Oh, I thought April was you.
Oh,
Was
that
what you
was,
was-
that was quite some time ago.
okay.
Yeah, and since we decided to undertake further consultation, we sought to move it out to the 1st of July. But until we're satisfied that we have provided the necessarily level of consultation information to participants, we will, and obviously we've still got to pass the legislation, let's be fair, then we'll continue to prosecute the argument of the benefits of the card to the people that are on the basics card.
All right, I know the chair's looking at me.
See what's indicated. She's got
Can
further
I
questions
just,
too.
could I just throw to Senator Seawort's initial questions around the exit? How many applications to exit the card have been rejected? You gave the figure of 169 through some of the content we received today. But just how many applications to exit the card have been rejected?
8.
8, okay.
That's, sorry, to be clear, that's through the exit opt-out process,
Yes.
what we call the
Yes.
opt-out
Not
process.
the wellbeing.
Not the wellbeing.
Sorry?
Not the wellbeing.
Yeah. How many wellbeing ones have been rejected?
That's the number that I gave before.
How many have been rejected?
Rejected, I'll just find that for you.
When were those 8, while that's being found, when were those 8 rejected?
That would have been over the past 2 weeks.
Over the past 2 weeks. Okay, thank you. Can I, while that, did you find it?
66.
66 rejected for wellbeing. Can I, before I go on to my other questions here, can I just check a question? I may have misunderstood the answer. When you're talking about a product being barred, when that's scanned, is it barred there or is it barred when the bill comes up?
So the way it would work is the products are all scanned, the bill comes up, the person then goes to pay. When they go to pay, there would be an alert to the merchant that one of these products isn't able to be bought with this card. That product could be removed from the shopping and paid for by a separate mechanism.
Can I ask why it's being done that way rather than it just not being able to be scanned?
Because you don't know that they're using the card.
You don't know
until
that
after
what
they pay.
card they're using till after.
They go to pay.
Yeah.
It's just exactly the same transaction process as that you use with a credit card or a debit card. So it's until you actually go to pay, it's not evident that that's the kind of card they're using.
I see the point you're making. The point being, though, that if you're in a supermarket, you're then embarrassed. Either way you look at it, you're embarrassed because then the merchant's going, oh, well, there's one of these things here, a barred, let's work out which one it is, pull it out.
No, you don't work out. It says on the bill. It comes up.
Yeah, but you've got to get it through the trolley and all that sort of thing.
No, the bill will come up and say, if you're going to exclude it, you'd have to go and find it. But if they were going to pay with another means, they would just pay one lot with one card and one lot with their cash or their other card.
Try telling that to the people that are currently still being embarrassed at checkouts.
Well, I can assure you the ability to destigmatise and to remove any evidence that somebody, like the type of card they're using, will be delivered by this means. If you walk into a supermarket now and you're using a basics card, you've got to go down a separate alley.
Minister, you're spending a lot of money and time developing up a card that is still only being trialled and rolled out, and rolled out instead of the basics card and the NT. Why invest all this time and effort for trial sites?
Because I think that unless we are very thorough in trialling something like this, you would be highly critical of me for not being thorough.
No, in fact, I wouldn't. If you looked at the evidence that it's not working,
Well, see, I don't agree with you.
what you ignoring
Well, I'm certainly ignoring the
comprehensive study that was done of the Northern Territory intervention and income management there?
Well, I was going to say, you just have to listen to the responses that we just received on the questioning from Senator O'Sullivan to say that there is an awful lot of evidence, so-called, out there that could be quite easy.
Sorry, Minister, are you casting aspersions on the University of New South Wales study that was done of the final evaluation of the Northern Territory? Is that what you're currently trashing?
No, it's a different one. And in fact,
Different
the author of the report that Senator O'Sullivan was just questioning about themselves actually said that the data...
I'm not talking about that study. I'm talking about the one that was done for the final evaluation of the Northern Territory intervention and income management.
Well, we're talking about the transitioning of the income management process from the basics card to the CDC.
It's income management. It's the income management that was on that they were evaluating.
Well, Senator, you and I are going to continue to agree to disagree on the broader benefits of assisting people in managing their finances.
Because I actually pay attention to the science of it.
I pay attention to what people talk to me about.
So do I. A lot.
Me too.
Including organisations that supported income management that have now changed their mind.
Well, Senator,
Very
we will
significant
continue to
organisations.
consult, we will continue to evaluate. So we're not going anywhere with great speed, and I'm happy to continue to have this conversation with you.
We've got more questions on cashless debit.
Yes, I do.
We need to keep going.
Can I ask, is the indue shop front closing in Kalgoorlie?
Services Australia are taking over the face-to-face servicing in Kalgoorlie. We've currently had the local partner co-located within the Centrelink office in Kalgoorlie, and the services will now be provided by Services Australia staff members.
They're doing indue's work, you mean?
They'll be doing the face-to-face servicing. They will be able to connect people through to indue for banking side of the card, but for servicing that you may need to provide a copy of your rental agreement or evidence of the rent that you're paying for a housing limit, or to submit your paperwork for an exit.
Is that happening in all the trial sites?
Services Australia will be doing face-to-face servicing in all trial sites along with existing local partners.
But not in Kalgoorlie?
Not in Kalgoorlie.
Why?
Just due to the servicing arrangement, we moved to just having the Centrelink office available.
So in the other trial sites, people will go to their local partners as indue providers and Services Australia?
They'll have the option, yes.
Again, so
Senator, we took the opportunity, given that, as Ms Patrick said, that the local partner was already in that same premises, so customers are already going there, and Services Australia agreed to actually pick up that service.
okay, thank you. In terms of the online email address,
Two questions after.
the online email address, I understand, is being closed down. That's where people ask a lot of questions. I understand it's very well used, and they also submit their applications for opting out, for example. Why is that closing, and what's replacing it?
As part of the transition of service delivery to Services Australia, people will now be able to provide their documents through to Services Australia rather than coming through a mailbox. So as people upload documents for their current services for Services Australia, then I'll be able to do the cashless debit card documentation and interactions through Services Australia rather than the Department of Social Services.
Including opt-out applications, those sorts of things?
In time.
Oh, what does in time mean? I understand this is closing very shortly.
Yes, they'll be able to submit their applications through Services Australia. The process will still be the same for us assessing them. So.
Okay. I understand they ask questions and things on it as well. Will that function still be available?
People will now be able to contact Services Australia to ask the cashless debit card questions rather than coming through.
On the phone, you mean? Right?
Yeah, on the phone or in a Centrelink customer service centre.
So for those in remote communities, how are they going to do it?
So
They're not necessarily going to go in.
So customers in remote communities would use the same mechanism to engage with Centrelink as they do with Centrelink for all their other Centrelink related issues. So rather than having to go to two different places, they will be able to get...
Will they be able to email Centrelink to get the point? It's the functionality that people
We'll take
are
that on-
concerned about.
we can take that on
That's
notice,
what
Senator.
people want to know.
Yeah.
Will indue still be there for taking paperwork on things like rent in the other trial centres?
Local partners?
Local partners?
Yes, they will be.
Okay. I've had repeated complaints where people from indue have been questioning the rent people pay, for example, and knocking back payments, but in particular about rent. There's a lot of complaints about rent. It's not indue's role, is it, to question how much somebody pays for rent?
No, it's their role to obtain documentation. So if you wanted to pass those issues on to us where they've arisen, we'd be happy to explore those further.
Okay, thank you. I've got more questions, but I'll leave CDC.
Can I just clarify a couple of things? Just in relation to exits from the cashless debit card, just based on the answers to Senator Seward, 859 people have applied to exit CDC, 28 have been able to progress to exiting. You've given us how many applications to exit the card have been rejected. What is the longest and average processing time for a person who applies to exit the card?
I'll need to take that on notice.
And what is the process used to assess applications to exit the cashless debit card?
So we follow the process set out in the legislation. So the legislation provides that, asks that we make an assessment against a range of criteria. So we ask them to fill out an application form, we ask them for evidence, we might ask them for some supplementary evidence, we conduct a phone interview, that's all documented and written up, and the criteria assessed against the criteria.
And it's only one interview?
It depends, I guess, if we would try to only have one interview, and it's by phone, but if, you know, when we go back to, when we're pulling the material together and it emerges that there's some missing piece of information, we may need to make a follow-up phone call.
Are assessments made based on just paper applications, or do you always need an interview?
There's an interview in each circumstance.
Yes.
Yeah. Just the nature of the criteria that are in the legislation.
Could I ask could you take on notice for the process that you went through to date for 28, who else you reached out to check those?
Yep, we'll take that on notice.
Thank you.
Any further questions on cashless debit card?
I'll have a lot more on notice. We're just not going to get time to get through them all.
Thank you.